Odin's sacrifice on the Tree of Life is completely misunderstood. He didn't die to himself or die to his ego. He awakened to his divinity. So in this video, I'm going to go deep into, and perhaps we'll do more than one of these videos. We're going to go deep into the Havamal, and I'm going to analyze for you what it really talks about when it talks about Odin's self-sacrifice on the Tree of Life. It is understandably completely misunderstood by most humans. It obviously represents a shamanic self-awakening. But really, what does that mean? What does that entail? So I'm going to go deep into this in this video, and we've got a lot of stuff to go through. I'm going to talk about the first two verses that talks about this in this video. And then I'm going to go into some deeper understandings of what all of the symbolism is, what it means. And most importantly, we're going to talk and bring this together with the Tree of Life, which I have to say probably almost nobody knows what it really means. So the Tree of Life, we're dealing with the 9 directions. I know it looks like 8, but there's actually 9 directions there. And we're going to look at the influences. All of this stuff is very important. This is a science. This isn't, if you're going to watch this because you are really interested in Norse or Germanic mythology because that's your personal identity, this video isn't for you. This understanding, this shamanic truth, is a spiritual science. We're talking energetic physics. And these truths are found in many different traditions. They come up in different ways, and they have different symbolisms and different focuses. When you bring them all together, you have an extremely powerful spiritual science. And when you put all of these spiritual scientific principles and actions together, the end result is an inescapable ascension, awakening, enlightenment. That's where all this stuff about light body, we could be talking about how to achieve light body. This is one version of that. And I would go so far as to say it's a much deeper version than a lot of things that are talked about. In any case, we will get into it. Before we do that, I want you to understand that we have all kinds of stuff here on this channel. So take a look at all of these links. These links are here to help you. If you want to learn the practices, the energy practices that have given me the ability to spiritually go in and explore these concepts, go here to thunderwizard.com. You can subscribe at multiple levels. I recommend the Warrior 90-Day Lightning Qigong, but there's a bunch of other ways that you can empower yourself. Go to the shop if you want to know how to do that very quickly. We're going to get right into it, but just to make sure that you know exactly where to go, thunderwizard.com. You see the menu there. You can click on membership. When you do, you'll see the various ways that you could subscribe. You can also click on shop if you want to just get if you want to learn about runes, if you want to learn about energy practices. Very inexpensive. Check them out and do the practices. This isn't about thinking. We're going to find this out later in subsequent videos. Odin says this. Odin is very clear. He says that he took actions. But you have to know what those actions are and what they mean. So let's go ahead and get into this. Odin's sacrifice on the Tree of Life is completely misunderstood. He didn't die to himself or die to his ego. He awakened to his divinity. We're going to talk about how the New Age, love and light crowd completely misunderstand dying to yourself. Why religion has completely misunderstood dying to yourself, and why it's important to know how they got off track, or perhaps were led off track. But what I'm finding, because this video is coming up because of some extremely deep and powerful self-awakening that I'm experiencing, which is in fact dying to myself on multiple levels. But dying to myself in this reality means awakening to a much, much larger self out into higher dimensions. It doesn't say that, unlike Christianity, it doesn't say that, Jesus died for your sins. It doesn't say that Odin died for your awakening. He didn't sacrifice himself for you. No. And what he did was he showed you what you can do, as opposed to Jesus, who did it all for you. Makes you into Jesus is like the Chat GPT of spirituality. He's going to do it all for you. You don't have to do anything for yourself. And as we found out, people who use Chat GPT, the tests have been proven, the studies show that people get stupid really fast when they start using that. So we're going to do the opposite here. We are going to focus on how we are going to empower ourselves spiritually, and what does that mean? Let's get right into it. Odin's 3D ego death, and I kind of say that in quotes, and his 5D spiritual awakening. 5D is just a term. Take it, like it, don't like it, understand where we're going with it. Okay, so verse 37 of the Havamal. He says, I trow I hung on that windy tree 9 whole days and nights, stabbed with a spear, whose name is Gungnir, offered to Odin, myself to mine own self given, high on that tree of which none hath heard, from what roots it rises to heaven. Verse 38, no one refreshed me ever with food or drink. I peered right down into the deep. Screaming, I took up the runes, then back I fell from thence. That's actually inaccurate. It should just say, then back I fell thence. The word thence already means from. Hence means from here. Thence means from there. Anyway, we don't know that. I'm a stickler for language. So you can see here I've capitalized some phrases and some words which are extremely important. We're going to get into that. So let's do that now. First, let's take a look at the first one. I trow. That just means I believe. It's translated as I know. Now, I don't know what the Old Norse is, but that word trow doesn't mean know. It means to think, to reckon, to believe. I don't know. That may mean something, maybe it doesn't. We won't focus on that. I trow I hung on that windy tree 9 whole days and nights. Let's start with that one. So tree and 9 whole days and nights. So what does that mean? So hang on a tree means the human soul hanging on a spinal column. So the tree is the tree of life. The first thing to understand is that the tree that we hang upon is the spinal column. The nervous system are the branches. The energy meridians that come out are the branches. Now it says there's 9 of them. We could get into that. There are actually 9 chakras, not 7. We could say they're talking about the chakras. I'm not going to get into that. We could say it has to do with the energy centers in Taoist spiritual practice. Again, this isn't mythology, it's not belief, this is a science. There are 9 different energy centers running up the body. We could say he's talking about that. But I'm going to take it a step further into something which I think is probably more, at least important to me. You know, again, here's the thing about mythology. Mythology is not stories made up. Again, if you're watching this because you want to get into the stories of your ancestors, I'm okay with that. But that's not what this is. Because then you end up with people having these arbitrary stories, and I like my stories. I don't like your stories, your ethnicity, your background, your culture. I don't like your stories. I like my stories. I'm saying this because I ran into this a lot. When I first started awakening to my own spiritual heritage, my background is ultimately Norse. I got really into that, and I wanted to connect with people who were into that. And they were all about the racism and about their, you know, this is my ancestors. And they honestly just read the stuff because that's, you know, that's my family lore. And they didn't realize that they were looking down on it, that they were seeing it as just arbitrary stories that people made up. And I'd listen to them try and analyze things like exactly what we're analyzing now, and they had absolutely no clue what they were talking about. And the reason they didn't have any clue was because they didn't have any spiritual training. They hadn't trained in any energetic practice that actually goes back into prehistory, like yoga, like Taoism, like shamanism. These things go back into history, they're spiritual sciences, because they didn't have any connection to any of that, because they were just doing it because, you know, they wanted to get out of Christianity and get into their own cultural heritage, which, you know, okay, fine. Because of that, they had no idea what the hell they were talking about. And I saw immediately, when I looked into this, I immediately saw that this was not just a story. True mythology is human beings channeling higher dimensional truths. These are going to have multi-dimensional aspects to them. That's why the word tree and 9 is going to represent a bunch of different things, and they're all going to be accurate, because unlike third dimension where this only means this, in higher dimensions this can mean multiple things. It's fractalized in all kinds of different ways. So, okay, sorry for that rant. So, tree. First thing I want you to think about is that the tree is your spinal column in the nervous system. And then let's talk about what I think is a really great understanding of the word 9. So, again, hung on a tree 9 days and nights. At the very least, these are the 9 directions of the world tree, the 9 aspects of the soul. So I have this old picture that, you know, I tried to put every bit of knowledge I had onto one map having to do with the 8 directions. The Bagua. This is found in multiple traditions. I've talked about this, I've written about this. Read my books, michaeldenny.org. You can read my books and see all the different understandings that I've talked about in terms of this. This is old stuff. If you're watching my channel and you have not read my books, you don't know what I teach. If you're watching this channel and all you've heard is what you've heard the past few years, you're missing all of the basics. This goes back to the beginnings of the things that I've been teaching here. So I'm calling this the Norse Bagua. So you have here an Eyjashjálmur, which is an 8-limbed powerful symbol. And if we look at all of the things associated here, we can see all the different directions. We've got north at the top, south at the bottom, etc., etc. You can see all the things that this is connected to. And we could get into this. We would be here for weeks and months unpacking all of this. So let's take a look at, let's simplify it. We can go here. This works very well. We're going to look at the 9 influences of the world tree. And here we have the north, the south, northeast, northwest, etc., etc. All right. So in the north, you have the future influences. This is the future. This is the In the Norse tree of life, we have the mist world, which represents energy that has not been manifested. So it's pure potential. Represents what's going to be manifested in physical form. The northeast, we have Asgard. We have the realm of the gods, of the celestial gods. This is the same as in Vedic. They call this the devas, which means the light beings. They mean the gods. So these beings live in the northeast. In the east, you have the realm of the giants, which represents our narcissism. Giants represent our narcissism, but we have to have narcissistic aspects to us, or we don't manifest into the third dimension. So we need these things. So this represents our ego, our identity. In the southeast, we have the subconscious mind, we have the intentions. This is where the dwarves live, which represent the subconscious mind, not the unconscious. People mix that up. The subconscious mind. This is the seeds of third dimensional humanity is here in the southeast. In the south, we have the fire home. This represents actions. It's only through actions that we make our mark on the world, that we accomplish anything. In the southwest, we have our unconscious mind. We could call this your programming. In the west, we have the terrestrial deities, the Vanir. And this is misunderstood. The Vedics took this too far and misunderstood it and turned the Vanir into the Asuras. The term Asura actually is the same word as Aesir. It means power. So the Asuras, unfortunately, they tried to come up with some understanding for the Vanir, which means physical, earthly deities. These are deities, but they're earthly deities. And in the Vedics, they took it too far and they turned them into demons. It's mistranslated as demons, but it means physical. This is where we have Lakshmi. They wouldn't say that, but we have Freja there. We have other deities that are actually earthbound deities. And in the Norse mythology, you have a war between the Aesir and the Vanir. Just like in Vedic, you have a war between the Devas and the Asuras. These are both two forms of gods. And the Asuras are not evil. They just happen to be at odds with the Devas and the Aesir, which are celestial deities, which deal with celestial perfection. And the Vanir, or the Asuras, deal with physical magic, physical reality. And from our perspective as humans, we need both of them. Anyway, that's in the west. In the northwest, you have the elves. This is the home of the elves. This is where if my understanding now, this is where we would put the Pitris in the northwest. The ancestral understandings. These are the beings that are actually beyond the gods. This is the gods bow to them. In the Norse understanding, the elves hold a special place of power. In fact, they were so respected that during the early Middle Ages, when the mainland European Christians were going into Scandinavia and trying to turn them into Christians, they would go to places like Sweden and Norway when they were still worshiping the old gods and making the transition. And if a Christian would travel around, like a Christian priest was traveling around, normally if they came upon a farm, the people would invite, they had to. This was part of their religion. Part of their religion is if a stranger comes to your door, you have to let him in. You have to take care of him, you have to feed him, you have to do this. That's part of the old religion that we no longer have anymore. But when it was during the time of the Alfablot, which means the elf sacrifice, when it was the time of the elf sacrifice, they would chase Christians off of their land with hatchets because it was so sacred. The elves were so sacred that they wouldn't let anybody come in who didn't believe in them. The rest of the time, you want to come in, you don't believe in the Norse gods, you believe in the Jesus thing, fine, whatever. Want some food, you want to sleep in the barn, go right ahead. But if you come in during that time when they're worshiping the elves were so sacred and they had such power, they'd chase you off with a hatchet so that you wouldn't defile their worship. These are the elves. These are the light beings. This is what people call higher dimensional extraterrestrials. They're coming to Earth. These beings are now coming back to Earth. What does that tell you? And then, of course, in the center here, we have the 3D conscious self. These are the nine branches of the world tree. So, we get back to here. Hang on a tree, human soul hanging on a spinal column. 9 days and nights. So what does he say? He says, I trow I hung on that windy tree 9 whole days and nights. That means that this person, who we're going to find out eventually becomes Odin, this person went through all of the 9 aspects of his self. The tree of life is you, all the different aspects of you. And there's an internal tree of life, there's an external tree of life. As above, so below, etc., etc. So this person was offering himself on all levels. Conscious mind, the superconscious mind, the ego, the subconscious mind, what I say, the action-oriented part of the self, unconscious mind, the part of us that relates to others, our higher self, which we connect with the elves, our superconscious mind, which is the northeast. All of these, I don't know if I went through all 9 of them. Those are 9 aspects of ourselves. He is going through a transition. He's going through an awakening where his internal 9 aspects of himself, the 9 branches of the tree of life, are now becoming unified with the external, the what we would consider, when we look up at God, the spiritual truth outside of our experience. When those 2 things come together, when you become the ultimate, when this person is, it doesn't, you can take it literally, you want to take it as 9 days, fine. I'm not necessarily saying it took this person 9 days. Might have taken him 9 lifetimes. We don't know. But he's sacrificing, he's offering it up. Who is he offering it up to? He says, I'm going to go ahead a little bit. He offered it to Odin. We're going to talk about that. So we see this as Odin on the tree of life sacrificing himself to himself. That's not what it says. Let's read it again. It doesn't say that. It says, I, whoever's talking, I hung on that windy tree 9 whole days and nights, stabbed with a spear, offered to Odin, myself to mine own self given. Is he talking about he's giving himself to himself, or is he giving himself to Odin? So is Odin sacrificing himself? What is Odin? What does that even mean? We're going to find all this out. We got ahead of ourselves a little bit. Whoops. So 9 whole days and nights, stabbed with a spear. The spear is named Gungnir. Let's take a look at that. Stabbed with a spear, Gungnir means swayer. So this seems to be kind of not a very great name, is it? Because when you look at a spear, it doesn't move. This spear, by the way, is supposedly able to hit its mark no matter who throws it, no matter if they have good aim or not. So in other words, if there's something right there, the bullseye's over there, and he throws it behind him, the spear is going to turn around and go. The spear knows exactly where to go. So it's really talking about the power of the spear. The spear is what gives Odin his power. Odin doesn't give his power to the spear. The spear gives Odin his power to hit the mark. So the spear itself is called swayer. Spears don't do that. Spears are up and down. They don't move. So what's happening here? So I learned this. I didn't know this because I don't remember living, 2,000 years ago. But the Greeks, the Greek armies, what made them so successful was their use of spears. Huge spears. We watch the movies. We watch the movies where Greeks are fighting with swords and shields. That's not what happened on the battlefield. The battlefield, they would have a sword stuck in their belt, and they might have a shield, but they had these spears. So the average warrior went out and because these guys had to fund themselves. It wasn't like now where you go and the government gives you all your weapons. You had to go get your weapons, make your weapons, buy your weapons. So the average guy was out making a spear. And I've seen recreations where people, full armor and sword and shield, and they'll go up against somebody completely unarmored with a spear and untrained, by the way. And they give an untrained person, a weak person, a huge spear, and the spear destroys the warrior with the shield and the sword every time. So what happens is on the battlefield, the spears, there's all these giant spears coming at each other and arrows flying. And then when all that's done, then you have whoever's still walking around, and then they go clash together and hand to hand, then you pull out the sword. Sword comes out later. Sort of like, you see in the movies, they got the big giant, cannons, and then that drops out. Then they pull out the 6-shooter because they don't have anything else. So they would the armies would face each other on the battlefield. And they'd have these huge spears, I think like 6 feet tall or something like that, just crazy huge. Don't take me to court on that one. But as they were standing there, and they'd be, like boxers do, they'd try and psych each other out. They'd be standing there psyching each other out, and they would take their spears and they would begin shaking them like this. And so the spears, if you've ever done that, are going like this. They're wobbling, they're swaying. And the tip of the spear would slice through the air, and it would go shoo, 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 shoo. Imagine you got thousands of guys going shoo, 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 shoo. We see the movies where they're banging on their shields. That's nothing. The sound of those spears swaying, cutting through the air, thousands and thousands of them. The sound and the energy that as it would go into the opposing army's ears would mess with them. And so this was well known that they had this ability to freak out the other, and we've seen this with, some of the Greek armies would completely trounce armies 2-3 times, their size. And this was one of the tricks that they had. So Odin has a spear called the swayer. Now, why is it called the swayer? If you've done Kundalini yoga, if you've done any kind of Kundalini practices, you know you start to sway. In fact, your spine starts doing this, and if your body will start swaying. So the swayer is the spinal column. Kundalini is being activated. So he hung on the tree 9 whole days and nights, stabbed with a spear. So he was having a transformation on all of the 9 levels of himself. And his spinal column was activating with Kundalini, and he was beginning to sway. It pierced him, killed him, right? Because he's stab somebody with a spear, stab somebody with a knife, maybe they can pull it out. You stab somebody with a spear that's got a spearhead that's this big, that person's not getting up. Kundalini killed him. In what way? We don't know. And here's where it gets interesting. Offered to Odin. Let's read it. I hung on that windy tree 9 whole days and nights, stabbed with a spear, the swayer. Offered to Odin. If he just said, I hung on that tree 9 whole nights, I offered myself to myself, then we would be knowing, oh yeah, well, this is what Odin did. Odin offered himself to himself. It's not what it says. It says, I hung on that tree, offered to Odin. He was offering himself to Odin. It wasn't Odin offering himself to himself. He, whoever this person is, was offering himself to Odin. Now the question is, what is Odin? Is Odin a person? I'm here to tell you that Odin now is a god. He's a specific deity. He exists as a specific personality. His name is now Odin. But this person that's sacrificing himself, that becomes the god Odin, was not Odin, but he offered himself to Odin. What does that mean? We have to look at the name of what the name Odin means. So Odin is originally in the Proto-Germanic Woden. Actually the Anglo-Saxons had the ancient pronunciation. The Germans call him Wotan, and the Norse call him Odin. But his actual name is Woden. Woden. It is oftentimes, you're told, he is the master of shamanism. And that's not what it means. Wod. Wod is a specific word. Wod means the power of shamanic ecstasy, shamanic fury. It is a state of being. It is an energy. Wod-en, the suffix en, en means made of, consists of. A tree, or a spear is usually wood-en, wooden. It means it's made, it consists of wood. Gold coins are golden, or color can be golden. Golden means consisting of gold. So Woden is that which consists of Wod. What does that mean? It means Wod, the energy of shamanic, furious ecstasy. Somebody had a transformation where they became Woden. They became a being that consisted only of Wod, only of shamanic ecstasy. So that means any of you. If anybody becomes completely transformed and the only thing left in them is Woden, somebody points at you, they'll say Woden. That is a being that is consisted of shamanic ecstasy. So Woden is now a person. But before it became a person, it was just Wod. And Wod could land on somebody and they'd become, shamanically ecstatic, and then they'd go back to being a person. Wod, you could bring that out in yourself. This is a person that up until this happened, this was the first person to completely and totally become totally consumed, where the only thing that's left of them is Wod. And then they are Woden. And then you have somebody who's so powerful that they can hold on to that state indefinitely and still have an identity, still have a consciousness and direct it, as opposed to what happens when people go into shamanic ecstasy. It comes and it goes. Imagine somebody who dedicates themselves to it to such a degree and dies to their understanding of their identity, to where their identity becomes Wod. That's who we're talking about here. So this is how this person became that. I hung on the windy tree 9 whole days and nights, stabbed with a spear, offered to Odin, myself to mine own self given. Myself to mine own self. You can see I made oneself big. So here we get to, what did I say down here? Offered to Odin. Odin equals filled with furious shamanic ecstasy. Offered myself to mine own self, higher self, the opposite of no self. So here we get to show the complete, total antithesis of the religious enlightenment, the religious dying to self, which is, again, you destroy your own identity, you believe in Jesus, you trust in God, you turn yourself over to something completely beyond you, and you're nothing, and God is everything. The new agey, love and light crowd will talk about, and I've run into people that do this, and it's just so annoying because it's nonsense. I don't have any more ego. I've died to my ego. I'm humble, and I'm just, true spirituality is you don't have any self, and it's the opposite of that. It's just pure narcissism. It's actually what's called what do they call that? Covert narcissism. I don't have any ego. That's how spiritual I am. I don't have an ego. I've gone beyond the ego. So I don't have any of that. It's the opposite of that. This is what has been absolutely mind-blowing for me since June of 2022, when I first started interacting with the elves directly, the extraterrestrial light beings. They came to me, and the first thing they told me was they started telling me how powerful and amazing I was, and I thought I was going crazy because it sounded to me so narcissistically grandiose. It's just that's the opposite of spirituality, to think that I'm the creator of this universe, and you're what? You're telling me I'm Shiva? You're telling me that I'm King of Earth? You what? I thought I was losing my mind, because that's the opposite of everything we've been told spirituality is. But this is exactly what Odin went through. He sacrificed himself, his 3D ego, to mine own self in this translation, to his self, his 5D self. So he didn't become God because I'm so humble and I just love everybody, and I don't need anything or want anything. He didn't do that. That's not what happened. That's the Jesus story, which is Jesus is a communal narcissist, where he feeds off of everybody's worshiping of him, and he pretends that I don't want anything for myself. I'm dying for your sins. I don't have any, because I'm my Father's son, and I'm just going to die for your sins, and it's okay. I'll do it for you. Right, Dad? I'm going to do it for them. And you're basically told, I'm nothing, I'm nobody, and he's going to die for my sins, and that's what saves me. I'm basically worthless, but because of his sacrifice, I can, that's what you're told. You hear this church all the time. I'm nobody, I'm evil, but because of his sacrifice, that is the exact opposite. That is the narcissistic, codependent self-devaluation of religion that has now bled over into the new agey, nonsensical, everything is love and light, and I don't have an ego, and I'm just humble, and that's why I'm better than you. I'm not into that negativity. Don't bring me down. That's narcissism. It's covert narcissism. It's communal narcissism. Odin is truly awakened to his value. He realizes that he is God. He realizes that. He awakens to that. It's not an easy process, as we're going to find out. Myself to mine own self given, high on that tree of which none hath heard from what roots it rises to heaven. Let's see, do I talk about that? Tree that none hath heard from whence the roots rise. None hath heard. Here's what came to me. Again, when I started having this awakening process 3 years ago, where I was being awakened to my higher fifth dimensional divine God self, when that started happening, there was nobody. I couldn't find anybody anywhere who had gone through this. I still can't. The stuff that I talk about and the stuff that I experience, there is nobody that I've found on this planet that has any understanding about this. I was all alone. I had nobody to look to. It was very challenging. It still is. Where you have to face your deity self. There's nothing in the third dimension that talks about it. No religion. I haven't found any religion that comes close to it. Not even the ones I respect. Odin is on this tree, and he is high on this tree, the roots of which no one knows where it comes from. It means people don't remember their fifth dimensional self. Starting 3 years ago, I started having awakenings to not only my past lives on Earth, but my past lives in the higher dimensions. My past lives as deities, as gods, as higher dimensional, all-powerful gods creating universes. I've made videos about the things that have been revealed to me. Yours are no different. The difference between this and what happens in the third dimension, Jesus becomes God. He is the Son of God. He is superior to all other people. Moses is the prophet. He's superior to all other prophets. Muhammad, there's this comparison, and you become better than other people. This is psychosis. So ChatGPT psychosis, what's happening is people think that they're God and they're Messiah, which in and of itself may not necessarily be bad if we're talking about higher dimensional awakening, but from their perspective, they realize they're superior to everybody else, and then they go completely crazy. Cult leaders who say that they are God, they believe, or they allow themselves to be believed to be superior to other people. The truly awakened person sees the equality, sees in every other person that they are an omnipotent, all-powerful deity that's running around wearing, a 3D virtual reality headset. They don't remember who they are. So when I talk about, people have accused me of this when I talk about the things that I've seen and I've been told, and people, some people have called me, a cult leader and said that I'm, I've lost my mind, I'm, egotistical and all that. And they're putting me in that category of all the other people who've said that they were something, but they thought themselves to be superior to others. My message is, do what I'm doing and you're going to find out you're the same as me. That outside of the third dimensional world, there are all these incredibly powerful deities. They're all that powerful. That's nothing new out there. That's the norm. So awakening to that here isn't going to make you feel superior. It's going to actually make you more humble, because you will realize that everybody else has that same spark. They'll be different. They'll be their own selves in the higher dimensions, and they'll be the creators of this, that, or the other thing. Who knows what? But there's no superiority going on here. So this is what's happening to Odin. None hath heard from what roots it rises to heaven. Nobody else is going to know. When you go through a true shamanic awakening, there's not going to be anybody else that can help you through it. Even if somebody has gone through it, they might be able to give you some advice. This is what I do. I give people the best advice I know, but they still have to go through it alone. Nobody's going to do it for them. And you will have this feeling that nobody understands where I'm at. It's because it is a self-awakening. Unlike what we're seeing, again, religion is, we all come together and Jesus saved all of us. We come to church and we all worship together. And in the, the New Agey thing, again, I've bagged on it before and I will again, channelers want to channel to the collective, which is ridiculous to me. You're giving a channeling to what? 100, 1,000, 1,000,000 people? You're going to say the same thing? Titles to channelers who are channeling who knows who, Saint Germain or Jesus or Mary Magdalene or whoever, and the title is Why You've Been Chosen to Ascend Right Now. Well, who are you talking to? Are you talking to everybody? Why everybody? So this is a communal thing? It doesn't work like that. If you've got a title, Why You're Ascending Now, and you're talking to one specific person, that makes sense to me. That's what my experience has been. Light beings don't do that. They don't give proclamations to the collective. This is an individual thing. Odin was by himself. No one offered him any food or drink. Nobody could help him. It was an individual experience. So then we get to the next part. No one refreshed me ever with food or drink. All right, I already said that part. So, offered tree that none hath heard from whence the roots rise. No one refreshed me. This is a solitary, not a collective journey. Screaming, I took up the runes. So he says, I peered right down in the deep. Screaming, I took up the runes, and then back I fell thence. It says he peered. What are the exact words here? I peered right down in the deep. He looked deep within himself. And what he found was the runes. The runes aren't out there. God isn't out there. The runes are within. Runes means mysteries. So we think it means, scratching, etching, but it could mean that, and it could mean the sounds, the seed sounds, but it also translates as whispers. Whispers. You have to what? But it means mysteries. The mysterious. That which cannot be easily known. You have to look deep, deep, deep within. That is a painful process. He's by himself. He's hanging on the tree. Nobody's helping him out. He is offering his identity to Wod. He is offering his identity to ecstasy, shamanic ecstasy. And he's offering his identity to his fifth dimensional self, his higher self. And I'm here to tell you, when you know what your identity is in the fifth dimension, it is not going to land easily. It will be difficult. Even if I give it to you on paper, if I write down to you, oh, in the fifth dimension, you are the God who is in charge of consolidating all of the consciousness in intergalactic, I could write out something like that. If I just write it to you and give it to you and you read it, you're going to go, oh, that sounds pretty cool. But it's one thing to intellectually know it, and it's another thing to actually feel it. And when you feel it, it's going to come from a higher dimension, and just the feeling of it is going to start destroying your third dimensional brain and reality, your understanding. And it will feel like it's killing you, because it is. This is what dying to the self means. It doesn't mean dying to all of your attachments and getting rid of all the things that you want and I want to be wealthy and happy, but I'm just going to give up that, and I'm not going to have any desires. And that's not what it means. That is called escapism. It's actually what happens with people who have mental illnesses. It's called dissociation. They can't tolerate the feelings, so they dissociate. I don't have any feelings. I'm not angry. I don't have any desires. That's dissociation. La 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 la. Because you can't tolerate your own feelings. People have said this, as long as I've been into this, especially people who go in. No, I got nothing against Buddhism. There's some really wonderful stuff, but a lot of people in Buddhism conflate Buddhism with escapism and with what's the word that I just threw out there? Dissociation. I don't have a soul. I don't have any desires. I just live in emptiness. La la la. It means they're trying to escape. They can't tolerate their pain. They can't tolerate the intensity. I'm here to tell you, Wod, the shamanic fury of ecstasy, is intense. The feelings are intense. The love of higher dimensional energy is intense. And if you're trying to escape because you can't tolerate your feelings and you want to go someplace where everything is peaceful, your Wod is not what you want. It's going to be challenging. It's going to feel like it's killing you. So that's what this is, this dying to the self. This is what this is really about. Dying to your third dimensional identity, awakening to your higher dimensional identity. That is so much bigger when you start to expand into your higher dimensional identity your third dimensional identity is this big, and when you expand, you crack it open, you die. In some practices, people actually die. They physically die and they resurrect. The Maoshan's Taoists did this. They would bury themselves for 40 days, and then they would resurrect themselves, and then they'd have light bodies and walk through walls and things like that. At least that's the mythology behind it, the legends behind it. Okay, screaming, I took up the runes, and then I fell back from there. So the process of expanding into your higher dimensional self, screaming, your identity will scream. So I started thinking about this today because we have a live, where is it? I have a Zoom group for people who are doing these channelings. Let's see if I can find it. I have a Zoom group for people, here it is. So the ET channeling and interdimensional communication Zoom workshop, that is we meet twice a month. And I wish I had recorded it. I don't have permission from the other people to do that, so didn't even dawn on me. But if I get their permission, I'm going to start recording these things and putting them up so you can see what happens. Maybe it'll translate into video, maybe it won't, I don't know. But what ended up happening is, we're together, and then what's happening is the light beings are coming and talking to us. And so we are communicating to each other what we're being told, what we're experiencing. And sometimes we're giving messages to each other, and it's, and so some of the messages that were coming back to me were, if you were to write them down, it wasn't not that big of a deal. Specifically, the words were, is your king ready? You can relax now, you can be yourself, you can breathe. That all sounds very good, except what was happening to me was something altogether different. What was happening to me was that I was seeing my higher self, and I was being told, you can relax into that. You can breathe into that. And that's a lot different than, I'm just feeling a lot better. I can just breathe and be myself now. No. You can drop the third dimensional video game, and you can finally relax into this multi-dimensional, all-powerful deity that you are. That was, it was intense and blissful and wonderful and all kinds of other things. And then I woke up the next day and I was mad. Why am I mad? Why am I mad at and then having all these doubts and talking myself out of it. This is ridiculous. It's my third dimensional mind, because just like here, it's exactly like here. You find the runes, you dig deep, you find the runes, you expand into your higher dimensional self, screaming, and then you fall back. You expand, and then you wake up the next morning and you're back in your third dimensional body. And it says that right here. It says, screaming I took up the mysteries, and then back I fell from thence. Screaming I took the runes, then I fell back from there. Here's the last one. And this is why, again, this will make sense. So, Odin is a spiritual title. It is not a person's name. Same with Shiva, by the way. Shiva is a spiritual title. It is not a deity's name. It means that there will always be an Odin. By the way, Odin and Shiva are the same person. I don't know if you know that, but this has to do with Indo-European linguistics. When you look at the names for Shiva in the Vedic, you will find one of his names is Ugra. means fierce, means frightening, and it's one of his names, Ugra. It's also a title given to other deities like Ugra, Kali, So Ugra is one of Shiva's names, it's his essence. Yggdrasil means the horse of terror, means terror's horse. So one of Odin's name is Ygg. Ygg means terrifying. It's the same word as Ugra. Ygg, Ugra. It's the same word. It means terrifying. And so Odin, his name is terrifying. Shiva's name is terrifying. And it's the same word in the same, two dialects of the same language. One happens to be Old Norse, one happens to be Vedic Sanskrit, but they come back from an original root word. We're talking, it's the same person. It's the same deity who manifested to the Germanic tribes. He also manifested himself to the Vedic tribes. And he gave them his name, Ugra. So the truth is that this deity that we call Shiva, that we call Odin, it is a title that is given. And so, 100,000 years from now, or who knows, there will be somebody else. Another soul will have evolved to a place where they can expand into being that. And the person who is now Odin will move on to something else. But the title of Odin, he who consists of shamanic fury, or the title of Shiva, auspicious or fierce. There will be a specific soul that will expand into that, and they will be that deity. They will be called that. So I learned this early on. I was told this a couple of times in different ways. And the first time that I was given a name similar to that, and I went, "What? I'm just a human." And they said, "You don't understand. This is a title. You've earned this title." Was another very grandiose title that was given to me, and I flipped out, and the being said, "You don't understand. This is temporary. It can be taken from you if you don't operate within that. It can be taken from you." Early on, they said, "You are," and they gave me this huge thing, and I flipped out, and they said, "If you don't want it, we can give it to somebody else." I said, No, I want it. I just don't understand it." So this, we're seeing here the story of Odin. We're seeing a soul, a human soul, who says yes to the process of self-awakening. And when they self-awaken, this individual expanded into the title of Odin, the master of shamanism, the master of spiritual transformation, the master of spiritual ecstasy. They're the master of spiritual ecstasy because spiritual ecstasy exists. It's a frequency that exists, and this person evolved into it. And now they became that for who knows how long. Until somebody else comes along, until that identity of Odin expands into something else, and that somebody else will be the next Odin, the next Shiva, the next whomever. So that's what I'm seeing here. That's the story. I know I hung on that windy tree 9 whole days and nights, stabbed with a spear, offered to Odin, myself to mine own self given, high on that tree of which none hath heard from what roots it rises to heaven. No one refreshed me ever with food or drink. I peered right down in the deep. Screaming I took up the runes. Then back I fell from thence. And then in the next video, if we do this again, I'll go into the later verses and you'll see a lot of other cool stuff. All right? Okay, so today's Tuesday. We've got the live guided interdimensional meditation coming up tomorrow at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. That'll be live streamed. And you can go and see all of the meditations we've done. They are archived in the live section on my YouTube channel. Just click on live on my YouTube channel. You can see all of them. And we just did the live CE5 on Saturday. That was an interesting one. And we have all this other cool stuff. So if you want to start this process, you want to become Odin, you can go and compete for that title, assuming that the title is available. If somebody else isn't occupying it right now, go to Galactic Contact. It's a 10-step practical video course. Learn how to communicate with and channel higher dimensional beings. And to do that, you go to contact.thunderwizard.com. I have these channeled sessions, channeled personal guidance from interdimensional light beings. Go to channel.thunderwizard.com. There are monthly subscriptions you can get at thunderwizard.com. Why do you want to do this? Because the beings that I channel, they communicate directly to you. They don't do the new agey stuff where they give a general message for the collective. No, they give one to you, specifically to you. And you will go through that experience of expanding beyond your third dimensional ego. And you're going to have to, handle that as best you can. But this is how it starts. This is one of the ways to do it. So we have the channeled sessions. We have the channeled Zoom group. I'm going to be probably a little protective of that group, so I may not just let anybody in. I may have to work with you a little bit first before I think you're a good fit for that group. But you can go check that out and check out the other. Go to, as we talked about before, go to the Thunder Wizard page, click on membership, and see all the different ways that you can subscribe there and get access to me. Interdimensional Mentorship Level 1. That's one way that you can work directly with me and the light beings. And if I get the sense that you'd be a good fit for the channeling group, I may offer that to you. And go to Thunder Wizard and go to the shop. There, click on the shop and you'll see all this stuff. If you don't know what the hell I'm talking about, go do Awakening the Immortals, or go do the Maushan 5 Elements. By the way, I am getting ready to videotape the next Maushan practice, one of the first spirit fighting practices, which is called the Hands of Infinity. And so that'll be coming out soon. Anyway, I appreciate everybody who supports the channel. The actual support where you go and subscribe or purchase products, those things actually keep the channel going. They, in all seriousness, keep me from living in my car and allow me to do this work. So I really appreciate people just going to the shop and buying whatever, subscribing at whatever level. I really appreciate it. So that's it for now, my friends. I love you all. Please be very good to yourselves. I will see you all very soon.